At the moment, we are on the final stages of
This video was captured in the summer of 2014 on a Boeing 777 at Amsterdam Schiphol Airport. Shortly bound for Kuala Lumpur, excited passengers like Gary Slock and the Halley family post photos to Facebook. Under one image, family members commented, "Happy holidays, we expect nice pictures." Unfortunately, thanks to a missile from the Russian 53rd Anti-Aircraft Missile Brigade, the pictures the world got were anything but happy. This is the story of MH17, the other Malaysia Airlines tragedy. By the summer of 2014, eastern Ukraine had slid into war. Russia had annexed Crimea, and unrest had soon spread across eastern Ukraine. In the Donbass region, armed separatists seized towns, government buildings, and territory with the long-term goal to bring the region under Russian control. Officially, Moscow described the fighters as local pro-Russian rebels, but few were fooled by that description. The separatists were heavily armed, increasingly organized, and were backed directly by Russia. The use of Russian weapons, military vehicles, and even Russian soldiers operating in unmarked uniforms, alongside separatist fighters, increasingly pointed to direct involvement by Russia. Ukrainian transport planes, helicopters, and fighter jets were all being shot down over eastern Ukraine by Russian militants. Yet, despite the growing danger, civilian airliners continued to fly overhead each day. While Ukraine had closed lower altitude airspace, commercial traffic above 32,000 feet was considered safe. At around 12:30 p.m. on the 17th of July 2014, Malaysia Airlines flight MH17 lifted off from Amsterdam Schiphol Airport bound for Kuala Lumpur. The aircraft was a Boeing 777 carrying 283 passengers and 15 crew. After departing Amsterdam, MH17 climbed east across Europe. The planned route would take them directly over the Donbass region, where fighting between Ukrainian forces and Russian-backed rebels raged on. Just hours earlier, however, Russian air traffic authorities had issued a warning regarding commercial flights over the area. However, that warning was missed by Malaysia Airlines' automated flight planning systems, and, as a result, MH17's route was never changed. Earlier that day, an Associated Press journalist reported seeing a Buk missile launcher crossing the Russian border into separatist-controlled Ukraine. The Buk was a Russian-made surface-to-air missile system designed to destroy aircraft at high altitude. As passengers on board MH17 settled in for the long journey to Kuala Lumpur, the Boeing 777 cruised east across Ukrainian airspace. 33,000 feet below, however, Russian-backed separatists manning the Buk missile system tracked the aircraft overhead, believing it was a Ukrainian military transport plane. Then, at around 4:20 in the afternoon, local time, the order was given. A Russian-made Buk surface-to-air missile was launched into the sky toward the aircraft above. As the 298 people on board remained unaware of the danger closing in on them, the missile detonated just outside the flight deck. The explosion tore through the front of the Boeing 777, triggering a catastrophic decompression as the aircraft began breaking apart while plummeting back to Earth. In the immediate aftermath, wreckage from MH17 rained across the fields and villages of eastern Ukraine. Passengers, luggage, and aircraft debris had been scattered across more than 19 square miles. Armed Russian separatists quickly sealed off the area, restricting access to emergency crews and investigators. Reports of looting soon emerged, with personal belongings allegedly taken from the dead as chaos spread across the scene. International investigators attempting to reach the site were obstructed, while some journalists and recovery teams described being threatened at gunpoint by Russian-backed fighters controlling the area. Then came one of the most telling moments in the hours after the disaster. Shortly after the aircraft had been shot down, Russian separatist commander Igor Girkin bragged on social media about downing what he believed was a Ukrainian military transport aircraft. However, once it became clear a civilian passenger jet had just been destroyed, the post was quickly deleted, and almost immediately, the narrative changed. In the hours and days following the tragedy, Russia and its rebel fighters quickly denied responsibility for the shootdown. Instead, they blamed Ukraine. Russian state media pushed multiple conflicting theories, including claims the Ukrainian fighter jet had done it. But as international investigators pieced together satellite data, intercepted communications, witness accounts, photos and videos, a very different picture emerged. The intentional downing of Malaysia Airlines flight MH17 was investigated by the Dutch Safety Board with help from Australia, Belgium, Ukraine and Malaysia. In the days after the tragedy, investigators struggled to access the crash site, which was under the control of Russian-backed rebels. But as debris was recovered, investigators concluded that MH17 had, without a doubt, been struck by a missile. The investigation confirmed the Buk system crossed into Ukraine from Russia on the day of the attack, before returning across the border. Matching various markings, investigators traced it to Russia's 53rd Anti-Aircraft Missile Brigade. In 2015, Malaysia suggested a United Nations tribunal to prosecute those responsible. The resolution had majority support. Somewhat tellingly though, Russia vetoed it, despite claiming no involvement. In 2022, a Dutch court convicted in absentia 2 Russians and 1 Ukrainian separatist over the downing of MH17, including former Russian-backed separatist commander Igor Girkin, ruling that Russia controlled the rebel forces in eastern Ukraine. However, Russia denied responsibility. You may be wondering what happened to the 298 victims. The pilots were killed instantly when the missile detonated just outside the flight deck. Post-mortem examinations later found missile fragments, along with shattered flight deck window glass embedded in their bodies. The aircraft then suffered an explosive decompression and immediately broke apart. Unbelted passengers were likely expelled into open air as the aircraft disintegrated. Investigators believed most passengers would have become incapacitated during the decompression, but they could not rule out that some may have remained conscious during the roughly 1.5-minute descent back to Earth. Questions later emerged after investigators discovered a passenger with an oxygen mask around their neck, though they could not determine whether it had been intentionally put there or exactly how long passengers may have survived after the explosion. That's all for today's video. If you found value in it, I'd love it if you subscribed and joined me for the next one. To watch another of my videos, you can click the link on screen. And as always, thanks for watching.